Will we? Okay.
If we want to go half-hour blocks, that's not an unreasonable thing to do. I mean, people probably would like an easy way to break it.
Okay. Well, the recording has started, and it is 3/21, 2022. And uh, Bill, my big brother, is talking about his childhood toys that he had as a child. And there you go, Bill.
Okay, yeah, it's going to be mostly chronological, I think, and so when my memories of toys improves here, I start being old enough to remember much about them. Uh, the World War II was affecting so many things in a person's life, and even little kids like I was at that time. And some of them reflect a war military related thing. The one that comes to mind initially is a toy rifle that I got. I think it was for a birthday, and uh, there were a lot of shortages. There were metal shortages and so forth during the war. Uh, this was a almost 100% wooden gun, no plastics. In fact, the plastics I don't think were really available at that time, not like they are today, certainly. But this wooden gun was probably sized to, say, roughly a 6-year-old, be in proportion to a 6-year-old. And it was brown. It was wood that was stained brown, and it was moderately realistic looking. In fact, I think it was modeled after, uh, see, the gun just before the M1 rifle that was used in the Army. And I forget the name of it, an Enfield, possibly. It had what do you call it when you have a sort of like a little lever on the side of it and you lift it up and pull it back to engage another round. And so it was modeled after that rifle, as I recall. But the fascinating thing about that thing to me was there's a mechanism that when you pulled the trigger, say you slowly pulled the trigger back on this toy rifle, it would lift up internal to the rifle a thin wooden strip, and then as you continue to pull the trigger back, that wooden strip would slip off the mechanism and smack down on a little metal dowel that was in there, and make a fairly loud snapping
Uh-huh.
sound. It sounds like the rifle going off. Um, and that just fascinated the heck out of
Oh,
me. They
yeah.
also had on that rifle a uh, what would you call it? What do you call with the webbing that is sort of like a strap that you can uh, wrap around your arm and
Oh,
so
yes.
forth? That was
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what they call those, but yes, I
I
know.
don't know what they call those things. Yeah, but anyway, those things. Certainly, when I was in the Army, which I presume that will produce a an interview on my helping keep this country safe from democracy. Uh, the M1 that I had in the Army had one of those straps as well. So some years later, less than 20 years later, I had a real rifle that made a much louder sound. And but it uh, actually, the truth of the matter is that in the Army, rifle practice was kind of one of the fun things to do. Uh, I don't know quite why I felt that way about it, but I did. But this rifle was just fascinating to me, and I think that era, it was one of the ones top of my list of thrilling things to have.
You
Uh,
recall having great adventures outside shooting?
I don't remember, oddly enough, I don't remember playing with anybody. We probably did. I think kids played outside a lot more than they do here in 2022. Seldom do I see kids here in Bandon anyway playing outside. Uh, but I hope they still do that a little bit. I suppose all the electronic stuff now is more fun. You stay inside, but uh, but I think we played outside a lot more uh, uh, then. But I don't remember playing with other kids. We don't have any pictures that I found so far that I could add to the family library
Mhm.
of that rifle, and so they don't have any physical evidence of that rifle or any like kids hiding behind trees and whatnot, sniping away at the opposing forces. But it was a I think it was such a surprise. I remember it seems like it was in a closet. There was a little birthday thing, a cake and whatnot, uh, and uh, the part of the proceedings of the party was to look in the closet. There was this rifle leaning up against the side of the closet. It was such a surprise.
Yeah,
I guess it was obvious to me that it was for me. That was neat.
yeah,
There was another military, somewhat military related, and this might have actually been the beginning of my fascination with, I guess I'd call it tin toys. Those were tin uh, lithographed toys, and this was a submarine that was, I would say maybe 9 inches long, roughly. Uh, a fairly accurate model of what submarines look like in those in that period of time, and it had a big key that went into the conning tower that you could wind it up. It was a clockworks, as they call it, inside this submarine, and had a propeller in the usual place. It had a small cork in the back of it because the thing leaked when it was in the water, and you could pull that cork out and then tip the submarine up to empty the water out. And uh, it had the many of the submarines, again, of that era, had a deck gun on it. I don't know how they kept it waterproofed. Don't know what they did to do that, but they could shoot at, uh, I don't know, maybe, it wasn't a huge gun, obviously. It was, oh gosh, let me guess, maybe like a 2-inch diameter barrel on it. Uh, and this tin toy had this little gun on the deck in the front, toward the front of the submarine. Um, had a periscope that popped up. Actually, I found something that was similar to this actually here locally, and they wanted $200 for it. And
goodness.
believe it or not, I was tempted to get it.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
and sometimes I say, "Oh, I should have gotten that."
Uh-huh.
I could probably do that. Then what in the world can I do with it? Yeah, so like so many of these toys, like the rifle, I wonder whatever happened to that thing. And I also wonder whatever happened to this neat submarine.
Yeah.
But you could put it in the water and it would motor along if you
Oh,
wound it up.
it
Yeah,
would. Oh,
yeah. I don't recall that it was that it went underwater. Well, maybe if it got full of enough water in it, it would go underwater. But I don't
uh-huh.
remember that. It seems like it probably floated more or less deep in the water,
Uh-huh.
but with the top part of the submarine exposed in the water. That was a neat toy. Somewhat more peaceable, though, was this what I remember as being a huge spinning top. You could pump. You had a knob on the top. You could set the top on the floor, and it was a traditional top shape to it, round. It had holes in the side of it, punched in the side. It was tin, and punched in the side of it. You set it on the floor, and it had a knob that you could lift up and then push down, and it would make the top start to spin. And so you could pump it a few times to get the thing rotating pretty rapidly. And then as you were doing that, it started making sort of made a tone. Those holes in the side of the top apparently made kind of a whistling, but not high frequency. It was kind of a medium frequency sound, and it was brightly colored. I don't remember whether it had any particular patterns on it, images of chickens and ducks and whatnot, or whether just geometrical patterns. But that was a neat thing to spin around, and it had sounds. Later on, and that probably would be closer to junior high school, I received I was still interested in toys, being an older citizen. That interest in things to play with hadn't diminished, and I got what was called a Magic 8 ball. And this was a ball that was, maybe 5 inches in diameter, black plastic. This we moved in the era of plastics now. And it had a window, sort of a clear window on the top of the 8 ball. And it was black, and it had a figure 8, like a billiard ball. Pool. I don't know, billiard pool ball. And there was a clear window on the top of this, and inside of this thing was a I don't know what it was made of. It looked like cardboard, but there was fluid inside, water probably inside, and there were sayings printed on the facets of this semi-floating. Let me call it a cardboard thing. It must have had about 8 sides to it. And as it would float to the top, one of those flat surfaces would press up against the window. And it would have a short phrase on it that would, one of them, as I remember, I don't remember very many of them, but one of the phrases, you'd shake it and hold it with this window uppermost, and then it slowly, this thing would float up to the top, and this message would appear saying "try again," for example, or sort of other short phrases. And gosh, I wish I could remember what some of those phrases were. But that was I think what one was supposed to do with this 8 ball is to sort of shake it or swirl it around or something like that, and then you would ask a question of the 8 ball to get an answer, and it would give you an answer. I don't know whether things like prospects look good. That seems like that could be one of them. It would be typical in any event, and that was I don't know why that one, as far as being really a great toy, it doesn't compare to the submarine or the rifle. But for some reason, maybe because it seems slightly magic, although not really. I don't think I ever believed actual magic, but it had a little bit of that effect. Maybe that's why I remember it.
Kind of like a fortune cookie sort of thing.
Like a fortune, yeah, yeah, a lot like a fortune cookie. I think almost everybody loves to read fortune cookies. I bet you, I bet you 90% of people that get a fortune cookie will read the fortune. Uh, Maybe it's more than 90%.
Yeah.
But that would be, uh, that's the way that Magic 8 Ball was for
Hmm.
me. Um, I might be able to think of other toys that I have or that I've received, but that's all I can think of at the moment. If others come up here in the next little bit, I'll sing out.
Well,
Um,
I might be able to help a little bit. I have a picture open of
yes, go
you.
ahead. That would help.
Yeah, we have a picture of you sitting in a wagon and surrounded by and a Christmas tree behind you. Um, and there is a fire engine and a chicken and that looks like a tin chicken. And Mickey Mouse looks like he might be beating a
Oh,
drum
you're
or something.
right. You're right. I do have a picture of that, and it's odd that I remember vaguely the fire truck. Those ladders were removable. They were sort of hooked on the side of the fire truck, and so one could hook those, unhook those ladders, and rescue people at the top of tall wooden block buildings, I suppose. Uh, uh, One of the things that kind of that really kind of amazes me was relates to mom and dad. There was we were in this era of like when we lived on Jefferson's, 23rd Street. We were hardly high rollers. This was, to my knowledge, the first house that the folks had purchased. Up to that point, uh, they, at least as a couple, had not owned a house anywhere. They always rented, and this was the first house. And the early pictures of that house, it was little more than a fairly small shack. I doubted it had 400 square feet in it at the time when they bought it. I maybe it was 400, but it wasn't very big. I know that. And but those guys worked on that, and I'm sure spent a lot of money on it compared to their income. And it was only dad working at that time. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, and so how they had funds for all of these toys, uh, and chose to spend money on that as opposed to uh, maybe things they would have personally liked better. How generous they were. How fortunate I think us kids were. I certainly I look at these pictures and see, wow, that's the sacrifices those people, those mom and dad made. That's wonderful.
I agree.
So one of those, another one of those toys in that Christmas picture is a tin chicken hen. That hen was probably, maybe 8 inches long, maybe 6 inches tall. It had feet that it balanced on. Um, and in the top of the head, there was a little hatch that you could open up and drop uh, white marbles into it. It came with a number of white marbles.
Uh-huh.
And uh, and then when you push down on the chicken, say it was sitting on the floor and you push down on it, it would go down maybe an inch or something like that, and you then let up. It would make kind of a squawk, like perhaps chickens are rumored to do that when they lay an egg. I don't know if they really do that, but that's what I've heard they do in the cartoons anyway. And a white marble then roll out from underneath the chicken, and that there was a pillar coming out of the bottom of the chicken, to which was attached the chicken's feet. And I think what happened when you pushed down on it, it opened up it presented an opening so that a marble would roll into that pillar, and then when he let up and it exposed the hole at the bottom, the marble would roll out. And so that was the laying of a little marble egg, accompanied by a squat. And it's one of the few pictures I have of those toys was this tin chicken. So tin toys, I still am fascinated by tin toys. I have a few of them that remain. Uh, uh, I don't think I have very many pictures of those things. Today they're plastic. They're molded plastic. Some of them talk and that sort of thing. They have batteries and a little speaker and whatnot. And they'll say a phrase or some number of phrases, which is in many ways technically a lot more elaborate. But if I had a choice between one of those plastic toys and one of those old tin toys, I'd probably pick the tin toy just because I think they're just I don't know. It's just maybe the era, the age, and so forth. There was a hadn't thought of this in some time. There was a little, maybe 3-inch tall, like a cone, an upside down cone, so it tapered toward the top. But instead of a point at the top, it had a little round head. I think a face was painted on it, and it was hollow. And underneath it, there were suspended from inside that cone 2 feet, 2 legs with feet. The feet on the bottom are somewhat rounded. And if you set that thing on the top of a gentle slope, a very gentle slope, it would walk. It would sort of swing back and forth, wobble back and forth, walk down that incline. Uh, just the design. It wasn't there were no springs or anything like that in there. It wasn't any machinery inside that thing. It was just this cone, a head, and these 2 feet that swung freely. And gosh, no idea where that one came from. Not at all. But it's one that sticks in my mind. But walk down these ends. Another one, although this is older, this might be junior high school, possibly, is the slinky. The slinkies were metal coils. They maybe 3 inches in diameter, but a coil of like flat wire, and it would you could have it. They set at the top of the stairs, and then if you were to take the top links or coils and off to the top and down a little bit into the next lower stair, the slinky would appear to walk down the stairs by sort of uncoiling and landing on the step. The bottom part would flip over and then go down to the next step, and it would go down some, it just keep on going downhill just by the momentum of this. I've seen some that were made of plastic, and I never saw them work. It's hard to imagine that plastic would actually work. Maybe that soft spring metal slinky. Another toy, I guess I could call it a toy, was a chemistry set. And I think I got this during the war, and the reason I think that is vaguely changed the fit timing. But it had wooden container. It had a wood lid, and then the body was like a dowel, I guess, in a way. And the lid was the same size as the body, but it was hollow, and it had a little chemical. And there was a booklet that came along with it, and you could conduct chemical experiments. None of it was explosive, as it turned out. I suppose it practically every kid would want to pull something up in chemistry. This particular chemistry set didn't meet any of those. I and things changed colors. You know, the book had litmus paper.
And Bill, you're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Okay, I'll try getting closer again. That's
Okay.
better. Had litmus paper, and litmus paper is something you use the fluid to determine an approximate level of acidity in a liquid, and neutral would be, as I recall, 7. But if you had, say, an acidic solution, like, say, vinegar, where it had water that had a little vinegar in it, the litmus paper, it'd be a strip, a little strip of paper, and you'd stick this, dip this litmus paper into it, and it would turn bright red if it was acidic, and blue, I think, if it was alkaline. Uh, so that you could test liquids for the acidity that it had. I I don't remember about anything like test tubes. Again, these things had, the reason I mentioned the wooden containers is that wood was available to use during the war, um, but metal not so much, glass not so much. Those are precious things, and um, people just didn't uh, you couldn't get them to make toys, but wood you could do it. uh, Mickey Mouse, which was another a pull toy. It had wheels and some machinery that went up to Mickey Mouse's arms. That would. What did we decide, Stan? Was that a drum?
I think it was a drum, as I recall.
We think it was a drum. Another possibility would be a little xylophone, and so there would be little like drumsticks that, as you pulled it along the floor, these arms connected to the wheels by some levers, and the arms would then, as you pulled it along, would move up and down, playing the xylophone or beating on the drum. And but the bulk of that was made of wood, with colored paper pasted on either side to give you an image of Mickey Mouse. That's an example, I suppose, of well, what unavailability, non-availability of plastics as we might have today, um, but using products that were available at the time. This being wood and paper and colored inks and so forth. So that's that's some of the toys that I remember. It's how much time do we have, Stan? Roughly.
Oh,
Before work, say we got this half hour up.
Oh, before the half hour, we can certainly go beyond a half hour, but we're at 28 minutes right now.
28 minutes. Why don't we? There's another thing that I don't know whether you can consider it a toy, but comic books were literature. Great literature was important to me, and comic books were in the category of great literature to this. Where would this be? This would probably be grade school, mostly grade school. And of the comic books that just really I loved was Peanuts was available, and that would be the very early comic books of Peanuts, and I loved the characters were the same of Charlie Brown and Snoopy and Lucy. I think were some of the main characters, but the comic books were wonderful. I don't really recall going to a store and buying them, but I must have. They were a dime at the time. A dime bought a lot. Kite, for example. You could buy one of those diamond-shaped kites for a dime, and you could buy a ball of string for a dime as well, as I remember. And the comic books were a dime. Another comic book that I absolutely loved was Scrooge McDuck. Uh, Scrooge McDuck was uh, had all sorts of adventures. Donald Duck and the nephews. What is it? Huey, Louie, and Dewey, I think, were the three nephews of Donald Duck. Um, but Scrooge McDuck was very rich, and he had, as I recall, he had this absolutely building-sized vault up on a hill in Duckville. I think it was Duckville. And it contained 3 cubic acres of money. And and so on the interior views, there would be gold coins and dollar bills and bags of money and so forth. And Scrooge McDuck loved to dive into this pile of money and swim, so to speak, around in it. That I just loved that. And they go on various adventures, and some of them being the early days of Scrooge McDuck. He was up in Alaska, making a fortune in the gold mines up in Alaska, for example. He, but he also had the Beagle Boys, and I don't remember how many Beagle Boys there were, but the Beagle Boys were rather overweight, big people, probably twice the size of Scrooge McDuck, and they always wore a mask over their eyes, not over their whole face, but just over the eyes, and they had a number on their chest, just like I guess when you get a picture taken, when you get booked, I think is the word, it would be their convict number or their prisoner number, and they wore striped shirts, striped like T-shirts, and those were the Beagle Boys that was always trying to, unsuccessfully as it turned out, rob Scrooge McDuck of his money. Those are some of the fun characters. I think I might have some of those comic books around. It occurs to me, Stan, that maybe scanning one of the comic books.
Yeah.
Many of them don't even have covers anymore. They're so thoroughly read. But I don't mind reruns, I guess. And but anyway, maybe scan a story or so of some of those comic books.
Yeah.
I didn't have very many adventure comic books. Some superheroes, Superman and so forth, were pretty common. I really don't remember that very well. There was Superman and Shazam. Who said Shazam? Was that Captain Marvel? Something like that. One of the superheroes would say Shazam, and when he said that magic word, he turned it from a young teenage boy into this superhero. And but those didn't interest me nearly as much as, I guess, the funny ones, the comic books that were actually funny. So why don't we pause here, I'll catch my breath and have a sip of coffee, and then we can talk about what's next. It would pop out and tip the tank. I think it was forward. It would roll forward. It was rounded. It was a tank that was kind of chubby, and I don't know how to describe it, but it had like big wheels in the front, or where the treads went around, and little ones, I think, in the back. And when that lever on the bottom of the tank, it worked by winding it up. It was clockworks. It would roll forward, and then it would land on its wheels and go forward for a little while, and then that lever would pop out and it'd roll forward again. Gosh, I hadn't remembered. I wonder whatever happened to that.
Yeah, that old tin tank. Didn't it make sparks some way?
I think there was a gun in it. and the sparks would shoot out of that, as I remember.
Oh.
After a while, that wore out. I think it only had so much ammunition, and it uh, stopped doing it. That would be that would be that would be a good one. That one I really remember quite well. Were there any other toys that you wanted to bring up?
Yes, I was wondering I think you mentioned kites, and I wondered
Oh,
if you
yes.
remember
Oh, sure.
buying the kite and the images on the kite and where you went to fly your kite. Do you remember any of those
Yes,
things?
yes. If would you like to say restart or continue this, and we could do the tank, and we could do the kites, and
Uh,
then stop?
yeah, actually, I secretly kept the recording going, so actually,
Oh,
I didn't stop it. So
oh,
I stopped it for just a few seconds, and then when I
oh,
asked you,
and went on. Oh, good, good. Well, and then I don't think I have anything to add about the tank. It was again tin, as you mentioned, Stan, and it was. I think they call it lithographed. It looked like it was colorful with red with yellows and oranges and so forth, as I recall. And it had images of the treads that went around. Those are more World War One style tanks. It had a cannon sticking out of the turret, and as Dan asked, there were that cannon, I think, emitted sparks when the toy was newer.
Mhm.
Again, another I forgot about that war related toy.
Yeah,
Uh, Not so popular these days,
yeah, no.
maybe for the good. Um,
Did you want to
but
hit
you
on
also mentioned the
the
kites.
kite?
I
Yeah.
think kite certainly falls in the category good for me about a toy.
Uh-huh.
Um, the typical toy was kite rather was purchased at the store that was down Jefferson Street, about 5 blocks from where we lived, and they were collapsed. They were in rolled up. They had two sticks and wrapped and some wrapped in paper. And when you took it home, I think it was a dime. Everything seems to have cost a dime. Um, uh,
Uh-huh.
you took it home and unwrapped it and say laid it out on the floor, and then you could turn the shorter stick to be a 90 degree from the main stick. The main stick was maybe roughly twice as long as the shorter stick, and the paper was glued to a string that went around the perimeter of the paper and went into little notches on the string, went into little notches on um, the wooden sticks, and then a string was added then to the short stick, the one that would be normally horizontal when the kite was flying, that bowed that short stick a small amount, maybe by 3 inches or so, and I think that helped the aerodynamics of the kite flying.
Mhm.
Uh, then one took the string and fastened a length of string to the from the top and the bottom of the vertical stick, and then this kite string that you would hold on to was tied to this string that's attached to the top and the bottom of the vertical stick. A little hard to describe that kind of stuff, but hopefully that's enough. And and would add, say, a rag tail, uh, kind of borrow swipe a bit of cloth that one would make, maybe 3, 4, 5 feet long, and attach that, which is basically a weight, I guess, at the bottom of the kite, and that added some aerodynamic stability to it. And then, when there was enough wind, uh, you could you could those kites would get up pretty high and pretty far away. Once in a while, I had enough money to buy another roll of string and fasten it on to the first roll,
Mm-hmm.
and have a great time. And I remember my favorite is going down west on 23rd Street, and across that street that paralleled Friendly. It was just before uh, the street just before Friendly, and there was an empty lot there. There were a fair number of empty lots when I was a kid on 23rd Street, and get up on the on this in this empty lot. It was really on the side of a hill, and get up a little bit high, and you could catch the wind and fly the cots from there. And there weren't at the time uh, power lines there. The power lines were death on kites, getting tangled up uh, in the string. You would be lucky to recover your kite should it get into the hands of a power line. And also, there weren't very many trees around for those things to get tangled up in. I remember going up on that hill uh, with Chuck Hodges. He'd have a kite, I'd have a kite. We'd fly our kites. Talk about what a fairly gentle activity that was. Didn't involve blowing anything up like the fireworks on the 4th of July. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun to play. One time I got a box kite. I think just one time
Oh.
in my whole kite flying experience. So there are all these diamond shaped kites, but one box box kite, and it was more expensive. It probably was 25 cents or something like that. But you had to put it together. It also came with these sticks uh, uh, wrapped around the kite paper. But even this, middle grade school, third grade, fourth grade, could figure out how to put that kite together and fly it. I think I actually preferred the diamond shaped ones for some reason. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Do you recall?
maybe that's.
Do you Oops, I'll mute my mic here. But I was going to ask you if you recall any of
I'm,
the.
I'm, I'm afraid I can't hear you.
Okay, just a second here. Okay, I'll try it again. Um, do you recall any of the kites came with some really cool graphics, some pictures on them. Do you recall
You
any of them?
know, I don't remember that. They were colorful. The base color was bright, like a bright red, rose color, perhaps, maybe blues. So the basic. I forget what they call those kind of colors. But red, blues. I don't remember any yellows or white. Um, but you could see them in the sky. They were plenty visible in the sky. It seems like for some reason, I'm not very sure of this, that term comet might have been printed on it with a semi-cartoon version of like a star with some arc, like a tail of a comet that was in a bit of an arc in
Mm-hmm.
black.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's a vague recollection, and I wouldn't want to bet the ranch on it, but it's likely. Uh, but that's about all I remember about the artwork. Do you remember anything about the artwork?
Yeah, in fact, several years ago, I did some research and found some. There's some information about the company that manufactured them and all that, and they have pictures of some of the kites. So maybe at some point we can um, uh, visit that, visit
Oh
that
yeah,
factory. And
yeah.
but I do recall. I think you're right about the comet, and I recall there was one with a jet on it, and then one with a
Airplane. An airplane, right?
yes, an airplane.
Yes.
One with a
Okay.
one with
Okay.
a rocket on it, and one with an Indian
Hmm.
chief on it,
I don't
the head of an
remember
Indian
that.
chief. And then there was one which I really thought was cool was the Man in the Moon, which it was a moon,
Ah,
and it was the
gosh.
picture of the Man in the Moon.
I'm not remembering that at all.
Yeah, there were. I don't know how. I bought the same kites from the same place, and I don't know how we knew what the picture was. Maybe we didn't. Maybe you just kind of took pot luck and
Yeah.
hoped you would get
Yeah.
something you wanted. I don't remember how we decided what kind of kite to get, though.
Yes. Stan, that's an interesting comment. We accepted an awful lot of what we had around us as just normal, and it was. It
Hmm.
was normal. I think of the toys, the comic books, and so forth. The money just kind of appeared. I knew Dad went to work, but I didn't connect it necessarily, at least early on, with money. I don't even remember getting an allowance, but I have a feeling I must have because I could buy the kite, for example, and the string,
Yeah,
uh, or a popsicles.
it is. Yeah.
We'd buy popsicles at that store. Do you recall the wrappers that the popsicles had? You could collect them and mail them in
Oh, you
to.
could. No, I don't remember that.
You could get a little catalog of could mail in so many of the popsicle wrappers, and I think usually a little money also, and and get some treasure, some child treasure uh, by doing that. And of course, it took forever for it to ever show up. It seemed like probably a couple of weeks, uh, but it took forever for those treasures to show up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Did,
those popsicles. Gosh, it's been a long time since I had a popsicle. I don't know that one can get a popsicle anymore.
I think you can, but I'm not. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Did you wait out in the bushes waiting for the whaleman to come with your?
I certainly have that cartoon view of it. I don't suppose I actually ever did. I remember before that sending off for some model airplanes that you needed to tape. I think it was a penny toward the nose of the airplane to give it the right balance, and you would either cut those things out or punch them out, and they were light card, sort of like the cardboard that breakfast food cereal comes in, the
Yeah.
gold, um, and so it was basically a tail, the tail section, the horizontal tail section, and the wing
Hmm.
attached to the fuselage, and I think it was Scotch tape a penny to the nose
Oh,
of it, and they would fly reasonably well. They'd glide. You could do it inside. I don't remember doing it outside, but you could do it inside, and they would glide pretty well.
hmm.
And uh, 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 but I remember that's the first one I remember ever sending off for it, and it took forever for those model airplanes to show up.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something we had, or I had when I was a kid, was those balsa planes that you bought at the same store, and they were just very thin balsa wings and a
Oh
fuselage.
yes,
What do you?
yes, that's true. You can still get those.
Yeah. Do you recall buying
I
and
do.
flying those? Yeah.
I don't recall buying them. I recall their existence, but I don't recall actually. They were printed, right? They were sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
thin balsa. They were sort of semi punched out
Yes.
with printing on them,
Hmm.
and yeah, those actually were better than the garden. I think they were lighter. But gosh, that's true. That's true.
Uh, that's all I remember. Although I bet when I start listening again to your your recording here, I'll probably remember things I want to ask you again, and I have a feeling that Margaret and Pat will want to ask you some questions about.
It it'll be interesting to see what they remember.
Yes,
Uh,
yeah, it will be.
that'll be fun. Absolutely. These childhood things are really fun. And one thing does certainly trigger uh, other memories.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
have a, I have a feeling if we were just sitting around drinking tea and coffee and whatnot in a comfortable place by the fireplace, uh, we could uh, we could probably chat for hours
I bet.
on
Yeah.
this general line, and as the theme maybe migrates, dolls, what, uh, clothes fashions in junior high school,
Yeah.
uh, what was the rigor and that transition away from the family, being the major influence in your life to your peers, moving away from the family in some ways. I look back at that. Of course, I didn't know what was going on. I'd never done that before, but that's what it was it getting separated from the family, I think.
Yeah.
And some people do better at it than others. Um,
Yeah.
you did a good job.
Well, yeah, I think we all did. I think I think I hung
I
around
think
the longest, but
Well, I think I hung around too. But there was there were so few negatives
yes,
to be there.
yeah,
It was a safe, predictable, all that stuff environment.
yeah, yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, do you want me to pause here, or do you want me
I
to?
think now's a good time. We're also getting close to noon.
Okay, I'll stop the recording here then. Um, I hope we can, the next couple of recordings, we can talk about a couple of things, and I've got some notes here, if I could share those with you, and that's the,
I Let me get a piece of paper out because I'm going to write them down.
okay, and I've written them down here too.
Okay. I've just thrown away my piece of paper about toys and so forth because if I keep it around, then I get muddled on whether I've talked about it
Oh,
or
okay.
not. So
Okay.
so I need to get rid of it. I'd say, did I do that? Oh,
Yeah.
so okay, fire away.
Oh, yes, one is the go-kart.
Okay, yep, I have that.
The other is the the bike-powered car that you built.
Um, okay, I'm going to call that a parade
Parade car.
car. That's not really a good name, but I'll know what it means.
Okay. The other one is another one is the Ford, the history
Oh, yes.
and continuing
Ford.
saga
Yep, I
of the
have
Ford.
that too.
Another one is one you just mentioned is clothing, clothes that we wore as
Style.
yeah, style and memorable clothing that we wore. And the last one, the last note I have is radio shows that you used to listen to when you were a kid.
Yes, I have some of that stuff here on the family page, like the Cisco Kid and the Lone Ranger and so forth. Certainly, talking about that would be fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll stop the recording here then. Well, that half hour went to almost an hour, so
Yeah, and I think it's your fault too.
I think it is. Yeah. That must be. I'll take full blame. I could actually go on much
Yeah,
like
how about full credit?
full credit. Okay. I get like you. I could go on much longer, but I'm afraid I'll have to stop it here.
You know,